browser and the Zoom so that you can kind of see both screens together at the same time. But yeah, feel free to engage with everybody else and ask questions. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Zulairam. And yes, please use chat. I'm monitoring it. I'm looking at it over here, and I'll take some peeks as I can. So as you have additional comments, as you have questions that come up, fire away. We've got 50 minutes for this session, and I'm going to share with you the 10 characteristics of a value-driven professional. I'd love to spend some time or save some time even for some chat questions. So as those come up, drop them in chat. And then if I can, I'll go back and monitor those. And I know Zulairam will also help me keep tabs on some of those questions too. It's so great to be with you. So yeah, if you would just engage with the chat, let me know where you're coming from. I've seen suburban Houston. I've seen Japan. That's amazing. That's awesome. I've seen coastal North Carolina. I wouldn't be upset if I were there right now. I'm in Columbus, Ohio. And it's actually a warm, sunny day, which I'm sure you've already heard about that if you're a part of the symposium. So today is really the temptation is to think about this as, well, this is back to the basics. But I don't know that there's even a back when we think about the 10 characteristics of a value-driven professional. These are characteristics that are critical for any of us in any industry and in any profession. And they're really the approaches that all of us, and I say us because I'm in this boat, I'm totally in this situation. Any of us can think about a job as a transactional experience. And what I hope I accomplish today is to help you think differently about how you can equip yourself going forward so that you find more meaning, you find more purpose in your job, in the work you do. And you also are able to think a bit more strategically about the value you bring to yourself, but also to the organization that you work for. So I'm just curious, if you were to just share with me, when you think about your career thoughts, aspirations, dreams, whatever it might be, when you just think about work as a whole, what would you say is one of the biggest challenges that you encounter as an employee, or maybe an employer if you have teams who work for you? Drop that in the chat. What's one of the biggest challenges? Hi, Virginia. Hi, Utah. Hi, Ryan. Good to be with you. So what's one of the biggest challenges that you face as an employee or even an employer in business? Slackers. Yeah. Time management and priorities. Other people who aren't as passionate. Yeah, Norman, it's like, Joel Manby, who used to be the CEO of Hirsch Entertainment and later SeaWorld, he wrote a book called Love Matters. And it was about, how to be a great boss. And one of the quotes that Hirsch Entertainment uses is, the enthusiasm of the guest experience can never be higher than the enthusiasm of the employee. The enthusiasm of the guest experience can never be higher than the enthusiasm of the employee. So if that quote is true, if we even just hold it up and we say, well, what does that even mean? How do we boost the engagement? How do we boost at least the commitment, even if it's not passion, of those around us who aren't necessarily the owners of the business? Adjusting to management styles of upper management culture. Got that, Carl. Thanks, Michelle. Managing short time windows. Yeah, because orders change, right? I got to up and leave. So whatever your challenge is, my challenge to you is to find one of these 10 that you could focus on and that you could cast a lens over top of this challenge and think, how might developing one of these 10 characteristics help me work through this challenge that I just identified? So this content is from the Business Made Simple University. Business Made Simple University is an organization that has an online learning platform, really that's meant to serve small business owners, young professionals, mid-career professionals, just any professional who's looking to grow their own skills and their own capabilities. And so I'll tell you more about that at the end. There's going to be ways for you to engage. If you say, hey, I'm interested in this, I'm going to share with you some things that you can do. Some of those are free as well. So just know that. Don't think that it's going to be a hard sales pitch at the end. Take what's useful out of today, leave what's not. That's really my encouragement for you today. So when we think about these 10 characteristics of value-driven professionals, the notion behind this is that these are really about what are the things inward and within that I can develop for myself. And the first one may be the most controversial. So if you're, cynical or skeptical about this, you feel free, you can share it in the chat. But when we read this, you might think, wait, I'm a human being. I'm a human being. How in the world can you see me as a dispensable economical product on the open market? Well, the fact of the matter is that all of us are paid for the work that we do. But what if we could actually begin seeing ourselves as someone who brings immense value to the organization that we work for? And sometimes as a leader, the easy cop out is, well, this person's so entitled. They expect that I'm going to pay them more and they're not even going to take on more tasks. But what if all of us as leaders and as workers could actually think and say, if I were to be committed to bringing an immense level of value to this organization I work for, 2 questions. What might that value be? And secondly, how does that benefit the organization and in turn benefit me? One of the best ways to build wealth is to help other people build wealth. Does that resonate for anybody? One of the best ways to build wealth is to help other people build wealth. One of the best ways to be an amazing, incredible coach, like when I think about my own skill set, is to help other people learn how to be amazing, incredible coaches. And so when we can transfer the value of what we bring to other people, already we're starting to 2x and 3x and 5x the amount of value that we bring to an organization. Now, as human beings, we are invaluable. I know that. I believe that. But what I'm suggesting with this characteristic number 1 is that we could at least start thinking about, I wonder what that value is that I actually bring to my organization. 10 years ago, I was in a job, I was consulting, airplane every other week. That was how I reached, the 3 continents that I visited. And I started traveling a lot more. And at the end of the year, when I was doing my performance review, I started adding up hours spent in airports and in hotels. And it was the wrong metric that I was measuring. I was measuring metrics that are very much focused on the sacrifice, air quotes, that I was making to do the work I was doing. When I switched those metrics and I started putting in terms of how many revenue dollars did I service for those clients that we work with, then the conversation about compensation changed completely, because I was putting it in terms of, here is the value I perceive that I'm bringing to the organization. Last year, I delivered on $1.2 million worth of revenue that you've asked me to deliver on. And here's the quality metrics that you could measure me on as well. Then this also started to give me some negotiation power to open up the conversation in my performance reviews about what is the economic value that I'm bringing to my organization. This also starts to bring some accountabilities in there too, which that's a whole different conversation. So that's characteristic number 1. Could we see ourselves as an economic product on the open market? Secondly, see ourselves as the hero, not a victim. This one also can be highly controversial. Now, because what I want to say is there are victims in the world. There are people who find themselves in situations that they didn't ask for. So that's not what I'm referring to when you think about see yourself as a hero, not a victim. I'll tell a quick story and see if this brings this to light. For 4 summers during college and even into grad school, I worked at a summer camp up in New Hampshire. And we would do 10 days of new counselor onboarding and training before all the campers would come for the summer. And our executive director would start one of these mini sessions of training and development with a plunger in his hand. And if you hadn't been at the camp before, you wouldn't know what he was going to do. And he would ask everybody, show of hands, who knows how to correctly and properly plunge a toilet? And you'd see half the hands go up. A quarter of those hands were very confident. The other half, people were like, no way. I don't know how to do it. I've never done it before. My brother, my sister, my mom, my dad has done that for me. And the title of that section, his name was Bob. Bob is he's an executive director at a camp, but he used to be a oh my gosh, why did I just blank on it? An astrophysicist. I mean, he's like a super smart guy. I mean, PhD, and worked for NASA. And he titled that "Be Your Own Hero." And the way he said it was, we have 15 cabins in this camp. At any given time, we have over 200 kids in this camp. If at 2 a.m. your toilet clogs, don't call us. Be your own hero. You can find your path through this. And so a huge part of this characteristic number 2 is much like what Bob was saying. When we can take a perspective that is, I can find my agency, I can find my resource, there's a better opportunity that we will figure a way out and through. That's a huge part of what coaching is when I coach executives, is to help people understand and determine that they are in control of their actions. They're in control of their next steps. And this is true for all of us. Now, I have to say this, especially if any of my, because we've talked about this, any of the staff member friends of mine from AFCP are on. I acknowledge that I say that as a white male when I say that. So there is privilege in this world. And that doesn't mean that I don't face things that are hard. And then it certainly doesn't mean that I can't find myself taking on a mentality of, my gosh, the cards are stacked against me. This is not right. This isn't fair, versus zooming out and saying, how might I see myself through if I could write a story about me being the hero through this problem, through this dilemma? I work in healthcare. We've been through COVID for the last 2 years, and it's still very much going on. Yeah, Jeff, I see what you're saying. I love this. And so we've had to work hard to not see ourselves as heroes, but see ourselves as coaches and creators and challengers, as Jeff's saying. Great video. Don't Google it now, or Google it as a placeholder later, is Conscious Leadership Group. And they've got a great set of videos. And one of those is on something called the drama triangle. And when we're committed to drama, which is one of the characteristics later, we can find ourselves staying in a place that's very convenient to stay, which is, I'm waiting for someone else to help me along. So see yourself as a hero, not a victim. Okay. Yeah, I told you these are going to see pretty common sense, but I'm going to pose some challenging questions to you at the end if we have some time. Characteristic number 3 is to know how to de-escalate drama. In the chat, just drop down. Have you experienced any drama in your life within the last 3 days? Just put yes, or put the word drama if that's true. Have you experienced any drama in the last 3 days in your life? I'm going to guess before they even come through. Thank you, Michelle. All caps. I see that, Michelle. All caps. Yeah. So look, there's drama. There's an invitation for drama all around us all the time. What this characteristic is really hitting on is, can I find a way to be the lowest heart rate in the room? Can I find a way to be the lowest heart rate in the room? Admittedly, as a father of 3, ages 7, age 2, and 6 months, it feels like there's a lot of drama in our house, or at least a lot of energy, I'll say, in our house all the time. It's easy, very easy for me to be the highest heart rate in the room. So people and leaders who know how to de-escalate drama are more responsive than reactive. They're more committed to seeing a situation clearly than just letting their emotions lead the way. Emotions are a part of it, and we should tune into those. We should even feel them and experience them. But when we know how to work with those emotions as they come up, we're able to be more in charge of our response rather than just be led around by whatever that is. The other piece, usually when there's drama, it means that there are other people involved. Sometimes it's the people we lead. Sometimes it's the people we report to or that we work alongside of. So the ability to have conversation, to share observations, and to even decide how you want to express a challenge you're facing with somebody will definitely differentiate you from many other people. So that's why we call out one of those 10 characteristics. It's a really important one. Yeah, breathing is one of the most important things. Viktor Frankl wrote a book called Man's Search for Meaning. Viktor Frankl was a Holocaust survivor. And a lot of these concepts are built off of some of Viktor Frankl's piece in psychology called logotherapy. Basically, that when we attach ourselves to a project or a meaningful purpose in life, we'll be more satisfied. And one of the quotes that's very famous that Viktor Frankl had is called, it goes like this: between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our opportunity to choose. And the opportunity to choose lies our freedom. And so the freedom to choose how we want to respond is directly related, Michelle, to your comment around watching your breath. Our breathing can often be one of the best things that we can do to help us de-escalate drama. Just saying. Doesn't mean I'm great at practicing it. Glad my wife's not here to listen in on this talk. She'd be like, yeah, take your own advice here, buddy. All right. So yeah, it's a great book, Norman. Characteristic number 4, accept feedback as a gift. So I want to say a few things about feedback. As an executive coach and as someone who leads intact teams through development sessions, I'll be with a group of 15 tomorrow, and we aren't even talking about feedback, but there's going to be plenty of opportunities for feedback. Feedback, if we can assume that it's well-intended, is when it's a gift. But I will tell you, there's been many a gift I've received in my life. You know, it's like the classic sweater that my mom might still buy me for Christmas every year. And I'm like, hey, Ma, I really appreciate the gesture. Now, I don't really do this. Really appreciate the gesture, but is there a gift receipt for this? Or better yet, just send it straight to the donate pile. You know, so this is where I'd say, you know, not every gift that I've ever received is a gift that I've enjoyed or that I've liked, or a gift that I really believed was for me. So there's a lot of things around feedback, but if we are committed to continuous improvement, if we are committed to, as a value-driven professional, getting better, then there are ways for us to engineer how we receive feedback. So one of those is to know what you want to receive feedback on, right? There's a difference if I said, hey, Nancy, I'd love for you to give me feedback after I give this presentation. What Nancy is going to say is, yeah, you did fine, because I didn't define what in particular I wanted Nancy to give me feedback on. However, if I said, Nancy, after this presentation or while you're in it, I'd like for you to notice how much it feels like I'm making eye contact with the people in the room or the people on the screen. Could you give me feedback on that? Yeah, absolutely. Now Nancy has a defined parameter that I want her to give me feedback on. So when we can be specific about requesting the feedback, that's that. The other thing, let's say someone gives us unsolicited feedback. Hey, Rebecca, can I give you a little feedback? How do you feel if someone says that to you? Hey, Denise, can I give you some feedback? What would you say? You're probably going to say yes, but what are you really thinking? Because a lot of times in at least in maybe Western culture or US corporate culture, it's like, can I give you feedback means I'm going to tell you something that might potentially hurt your feelings, because it doesn't feel so good. When in fact, again, what if we were accepting feedback with the intention that someone is well intended to give us the information that we get to decide about because they care about us and they care about our growth? One final thing on this is that oftentimes when we receive feedback, we take it as a character comment, a commentary on our character, when in fact it could or just might be commentary on a behavior that we can change, not who we are as a human being. So keep that in mind. This is a huge, huge characteristic out of all 10 of these. Accept feedback as a gift. By the way, you can reject and accept what pieces you want out of feedback, by the way. All right. Love seeing the comments in the chat. Keep those coming. Any questions come up, drop them in there. We'll save them for later. Cool. Characteristic number 5, we're almost halfway there. Know the right way to engage conflict. So if we're building off of 3 and 4, know how to de-escalate drama, accept feedback as a gift, we can also know the right way to engage conflict. One of the number one requests that I get from leaders and their teams is, it sounds specifically like this. Hey, Jason, I'm wondering if you can come and facilitate crucial conversations for my team. It comes in as an order. So it comes in, someone has identified the product that they want to use, the medium. As an organizational development person, what I'll ask instead is, what problem are we trying to solve? Is it that people don't know how to engage in conflict the right way? Or is it that they don't have the courage and the bravery to have a conversation that feels like it might get a little intense with somebody else? So there's the courage to challenge somebody, and then there's knowing the right way to do it. And I think that those are really combined when you think about characteristic number 5. Here's also a myth. Many times, well, the debate for organizational development folks is, must a team like each other to be high performing? Must a team like each other to be high performing? Research would show that answer is no. You don't even have to like the people that you work for, but you do have to be engaged in a common mission with some agreed upon operating principles for how you accomplish that mission. So when those two things are clear, knowing where we're headed is a really important piece. And so when that trajectory gets off path, or it feels like there's dysfunction on a team, and sneak peek, there always will be because we're human beings and we're imperfect, then it's really can become hard to know how to engage to get the team back on track. So some of this is around working agreements. What are people's preferences? But a lot of this, if we're thinking about the inside, like, inside of me, how do I manage engaging in conflict? I bring it back to a couple of things. One is figure out what it takes for you to have the lowest heart rate in the room. Secondly, I would consider, what is the truth that I'm telling so-and-so? What is it that I seek to share with them? And then maybe the third piece is a question. Am I engaging with this in this conflict because I want to be helpful toward them, or because I want to do something that's serving me? And I don't necessarily think that either of those are wrong, but at least be conscious of what is the reason for engaging in what the conflict is. The other question for many of us is, why does this feel like conflict to me? Have you ever experienced that? You're certain that it's going to come to blows, figuratively speaking, and then you share that thing and someone's like, wow, I didn't even know that. Thank you so much for sharing it. And you're able to move through it more quickly. Oftentimes you're right, we armor up or we power up before we head into conflict, which engages our sympathetic nervous system, which is the fight or flight, instead of finding ways to power down to go into a conflict with care, concern, respect, compassion, and a point of view for what it's worth. Yeah, Lisa, I'm sorry, I'm just seeing that comment, but yeah, Brene Brown, a lot of great things. I think, feedback from those whose opinions you value and allow to speak into your life. Who's going to be the gift givers for me if I'm thinking about feedback? Brene Brown also has something she calls rumble language, which is right on par with talking about these 5 characteristics so far. Know the right way to engage the conflict, know how to give feedback. Adam Grant's a social psychologist. If you don't know him, he has a podcast. He has a few books. Think Again is his latest. But one of the things he says about feedback and conflict is, are you engaging? Again, it goes back to, are you engaging in the conflict or providing the feedback to help someone else get better, or only to serve your own agenda? This is my own spin on it. I'd say just be clear on what it is. That way you can manage that as part of the conversation. So they know the right way to engage conflict. Okay. And keep it moving. Characteristic number 6. I'll explain. A value-driven professional longs to be trusted and respected more than liked. More than liked. See that question, Michelle? We'll come back to it for sure. You know what I mean by this? It's like, if the reason I exist as a business person is just to get people to like me, I could probably build a career off of that. But when I can shift that to longing to be trusted and respected, it's different. because this is where I might step into more of that conflict. Or as a coach, I'm going to be more of a truth teller for my clients rather than just helping them have fun and an enjoyable experience. So when we long to be trusted and respected, honesty and integrity have to always be a part of how we operate. Like I said, being a truth teller, maybe divulging or sharing a bit more about ourselves. So vulnerability, candor, those are some opportunities. If you want to be trusted and respected, there are many times where it's like, man, if I share this with somebody that I care about, even as just a teammate, it might actually take a couple hits to them liking me. But usually in the end, what it starts to do is it puts a few more deposits into the emotional trust account, as Stephen Covey would call it. So long to be trusted and respected more than liked. Write this down if you would. Just a really quick prompt. In what ways? So answer this question. In what ways does my desire to be liked negatively, it positively impacts too, but negatively impacts my performance in my role, in my job? In what ways does my desire to be liked negatively impact my role or how I operate? And you don't have to share that in the chat. You can if you want, but it's really about your awareness here. Lisa, I love that comment. Those who are trying to be liked more than respected and trusted, they're spending a lot of energy managing appearances and perspectives instead of focusing on the results. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Some of us are more driven by how the appearance, and I'm not even, right? There's no judgment in this. Some of us are more driven by keeping up appearances than driving results. And sometimes that's our strong suit, but to know what the impact is to that. Melissa, you have a comment too. Yeah. Yeah. Melissa, I'm going back to Conscious Leadership Group today. They call it a full body yes. You know, what ways am I seeking to be liked? And so that drives me to be compliant. But the things I'm saying yes to aren't things that I'm putting my full energy into, which is different than I really have fun doing this part of the job. Sometimes it's like, all right, this is necessary. It goes back to that vision. Yeah. And so that's one of the really important things to consider. Yeah. Kate, so appreciate that. You know, sometimes people make mistakes and I cover for them. You know, I fix it myself. And Kate, I'm going to say my piece. I won't project onto you because it takes more energy to tell somebody that they made a mistake than just going back and fixing it. As leaders, right, the long-term implications aren't hard to see, right? The implications is that someone may never know that they're doing it the wrong way. And now there's a standard operating procedure that's out of order or it's lacking some key detail because of that. I experienced that just last week with one of my team members. So I'm glad you brought that up, Kate. So that's characteristic 6. 7, have a bias toward action. Morgan, I love it. She's a little scary, really smart and kind of funny, really good at helping you. Love it. Have a bias toward action. Now, I got to tell you, sometimes this one bothers me. Sometimes it does, because I work with many leaders who their bias toward action drives them to do 2 things. 1, keep things moving forward when the team is out of literal breath, not figurative breath, literal breath. 2, they don't step back and let other people get the reps. And so it creates a succession pipeline void, talent pipeline void, if the bias toward action isn't managed appropriately. But nonetheless, if we were to break down some of the most successful people in the world, some of the most successful business owners, young professionals who are high performers rising through their organization, it's clear that they have a bias toward executing. They have a bias toward figuring their way through it and saying, I'm going to try this. I'm going to take this. And so I want to speak to those of you who might get stuck a little bit inside of analysis paralysis. Admittedly, I can be right there with you. My best friend, his name's Bryce. Bryce is 41 years old, 42 years old, and he's a retired school teacher. He retired because he could not support his family of six, on a teacher's salary in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. So Bryce started buying up duplexes. They have a ton of duplexes in East Coast, but in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. And so little by little, he started adding properties. Now, he worked himself to the bone to get there, but eventually he quit his school job, and he would say he's retired, but he knows he's fooling everybody when he uses that word. He is not retired. He has 34 properties under management, but he would liken it to something he calls vacuuming his truck. He started to take a look when his third daughter was born at their costs and their family budget, and said, there's no way I can afford a family on this school teacher's salary. I can't do it. So what he started thinking about was, how do I increase my top line growth? He's just looking at this from a family budget. Well, I can't really do that in the school setting. How do I cut costs? And so the biggest cost he had at the time was a full-size truck. I don't know, it was a Toyota Tundra, I think. And so he was almost willing to get stuck by, well, how would I sell that? A dealership's going to, give me a haircut. I'm not going to make any money off of this thing. I'd just be out from under the payment. And eventually he got to this place pretty quickly where he's like, you know what? I have to list it on Craigslist. If I list it on Craigslist, then I've got to get pictures ready for it. If I want to get pictures ready for it, then I've got to wash it. If I want to wash it, well, what about the inside? Came all the way back to the first stinking step he could take was go outside and clean his truck. He calls it vacuum the truck. And oftentimes when it feels like we're so zoomed in on a problem or a challenge, it keeps us stuck and keeps us from taking that first step. But if we could zoom out and go, if I were to have a bias toward action, what's the first small step I would take here? What's the first small step? So I think you all know what I mean when I say have a bias toward action, but that's that piece there. I also want to say this too. That's different than a bias toward busy. Bias toward action is not the same as a bias toward busy. This artificial trophy that we often can wear around, oh, I'm so busy, goes back to the very first characteristic. If I have an economic value on the open market, then how am I spending every single hour of my day? Am I taking action toward the things that matter the most or not? Right? That starts to raise the question of, if you're a private business, is, okay, when do I start outsourcing some of this? When do I make my first hire? Do I hire an assistant? Do I hire a bookkeeper? What do I hire a consultant? Do I hire an operations, chief of operations? That's where these questions start to come in. But the bias toward action is about forward momentum. Hope that's making sense to y'all. I'm sure it is. 8, do not choose to be confused. Related to the bias toward action, sometimes we can't see through the fog. And I don't know about you. I won't speak for you. I'll speak for me. That fog and that busyness creates confusion, which is just another way of procrastinating for me. So this comes from a guy named Doug Kime, who was he was a president of a division at Cox Automotive down in Atlanta, which is a subsidiary of Cox, the larger media company. And then Doug was the one of the presidents at Business Made Simple University until recently. But he always said this: do not choose to be confused. When people have to burn extra calories to figure out what's the next step I need to take, or this email doesn't make sense, or I don't know what I'm supposed to interpret about this. They might just be committed to staying confused. And so there's an opportunity here to think about, how do I find clarity toward the thing I'm confused on? But the real thing behind this is, oftentimes, and I find this often with my clients when I'm coaching them, they already know what to do. I had a coaching session with a leader this week. She's a new leader, one step now above her peers, people who were her peers 3 weeks ago. And she's being asked to implement an organizational wide change that she doesn't have any hand in making that decision. And so one of the questions I asked her was, Elizabeth, what's the real challenge here? What's the real problem you're facing? Is it really about getting this person to move off their commitment to not following, the change plan that was put into place? Is that really the problem? She was choosing to be confused. And when I asked her that question, she started tearing up. And now we started to get to the source of truth. When she started to have the clarity, it stung and it was hard. But a huge part of what she was getting clear on was, I know what I need to do next. That's exactly what she said. I said, well, what is that? I need to have a tough conversation. Goes back to the previous characteristics. I need to have a tough conversation with this person. Now I'm responsible for, in part, what she's producing. I'm responsible for how she's actually leading the people below her in some part. And she didn't say it this way, but she said, and it's like, I'm choosing to be confused about what my next step is. It only took us about 3 sessions of coaching to get to that step, but she had to work to see through the fog. It's a part of it. Oftentimes, you know what the next step is. So I want you to just a quick thing, whether you put it in chat or not, you don't have to. Choose something in your life, not just work. Choose something that you've been confused about. Next steps, something that just feels unclear to you. Choose anything that you're confused on right now. And if you think about the answer to this question, what is one small step I can take to get unstuck? What is one small step I can take to get unstuck? Write that down somewhere where you can come back and look at that later this week or even later today. One small step I can take to get unstuck. Maybe it's apologize or write it down or block my calendar or, I don't know, return the email, make the phone call, something. As an entrepreneur who has a full-time job with health benefits, oftentimes I've spent the procrastination excuse of, I don't know where I'd get my health benefits from. How would I even do that? Choosing to be confused because it doesn't force me to then start to take any small steps. But it's like one small step I could take is put it out there to some fellow coaching colleagues and entrepreneurs and say, what's the solution you all use for your health benefits? It's not a hard question to get the answer to, by the way. Many of you know this, right? You're small business owners. But choosing to be confused is just a very convenient way of not having to deal with the real issue at hand. So that's characteristic number 8. 9, be relentlessly optimistic. There's a story out there about Pete Carroll, who's the head coach of the Seattle Seahawks. And I think they're having a tough year this year, if I'm not mistaken. Pete Carroll is fully convinced he's going to win every single football game, his team. Someone asked him once in an interview, what's it like for you when you lose? You've been a very successful coach. I think he's got maybe 2 or 3 Super Bowl wins, maybe appearances. And he said, I am genuinely shocked every time we lose a game. He's like, I got to move through. I got to move through the emotion of losing and I got to move on. He's like, but I am genuinely shocked when we lose a game. That is a demonstration of relentless optimism. There's all kinds of research out there that talks about, whether you believe it or not, but talks about the ability to manifest in your mind a vision that you have for yourself. So what are you going to choose to be relentlessly optimistic about? I can find that next best hire. I can find that next best person who's going to bring great value to my organization. Is it, I don't know what the solution is yet, but I know it's out there and we're going to figure it out. It goes back to some of that hero mindset. If we can be the creator, if we have an opportunity to build momentum and find others who can join along in the journey, then there's an opportunity for us to be able to keep moving forward. Relentless optimism. This can be this can be one of the biggest distinctions that makes someone more valuable to an organization than someone who's not. And you know the pessimist. You know someone when I say who's the office pessimist that you know. Don't put their name in the chat. Keep that to yourself. But we all know someone where it's like, oh, we can't do that. That'll never work. That'll never work. I had a client last week. She said, I'm working with a team member, and that's what they always say is like, that'll never work. That'll never work. And I said, well, how's that impact the team? The team is less innovative. The team just shuts down pretty quickly. Other members on the team start saying, oh, that will never work. People who once used to say, yeah, we can do this. We'll figure this out. Now those team members are saying that will never work. That'll never work. So those are some ways to think about what relentless optimism looks like. Look, if it's hard to be relentlessly optimistic, just imagine what having 1 or 2 notches more of optimism could bring to you. Okay. That's good. I'm catching up on some of the chat too while you're there. All right. Number 10, and then we'll see if there is some time for questions. Have a growth mindset. Many of you already know who this comes from. This comes from Carol Dweck. Mindset, I believe, is the name of her book. But the difference between a fixed mindset and a growth mindset is a little bit of what I was just talking about. A fixed mindset is we can't do that. It will never work. We've tried that so many times before. A growth mindset is that hasn't worked in the past. What else could we try? Or that hasn't worked in the past, and I wonder why. A growth mindset taps into what's true about humans. That we all have a potential within us that oftentimes just lies dormant. It's not, we don't tap into it. We don't tap into it to the full extent that we could. If my friend Bryce had a fixed mindset, he'd still be a teacher, probably making close to 6 figures in Pennsylvania, but still struggling to provide for his family because he has such a massive family. I'm just kidding. I know some of you probably have 5 and 6 kids. I have 3. I can't tell you how I'm still standing right now. I have no clue. Yeah. And so Artie, like you said, to your 9-year-old, don't tell me you can't. Show me what you can. I love that. I love that. We as adults start to become jaded, cynical, and skeptical. If you watch a child, we as children, we are not inherently born with a fixed mindset. So my 2-year-old, here's a growth mindset. My 2-year-old has paralysis from his waist down. It's how he was born. We don't fully know all the reasons why. We can't figure it out yet. His name's Jack. Jack is fully mobile. I mean, this little dude, he climbs up the stairs, he climbs down the stairs, he climbs up on the kitchen table. I mean, he's doing gymnastics. The kid's all over the place. He doesn't have a fixed mindset. It's just like, I'm going to figure it out. Maybe it's middle school where we start to develop a fixed mindset. So the growth mindset is that there's ways for you to have breakthrough thinking. There's ways for you to achieve what it is you want to achieve. Might not be easy to figure out how that is, but to stay open to the possibility. Yeah, all the time in youth development, Felicia. I love it. Yeah, it's like we owe it to the next generation. We owe it to the people who we report to. And vice versa. We owe it to them to help them see there is a growth mindset available for all of us who choose to have it. Goes back to what Viktor Frankl said. I don't know. This term didn't exist back then, but Viktor Frankl, think about a fixed mindset when you're in a concentration camp versus a growth mindset. He was convinced he was going to have meaning in his life, even as he sat there, knowing undoubtedly that he was going to face his own death while sitting there. Lo and behold, right? He was liberated. Growth mindset instead of fixed mindset. So this is what the value-driven professional looks like. And Zulairam, I believe we'll be able to share these slides with y'all as a group. I'm committed to that. Let's figure out how we can make that happen. You've probably already told me that and I didn't hear it.
No, not at all. I'll have you send them to me and I'll upload them into the slides section for everybody.
Beautiful. Thank you.
No problem.
So that's what a value-driven professional looks like. Ultimately, when an organization, whether it's an organization of 3 or 3,000 or 30,000, when it's made up of people who are value-driven professionals, it's really hard to stop the growth, the deepening of culture, and the value that this organization is putting out into the world. So if you think about your own self as as a one person organization, how you dock into others is one of the ways that you can continue to drive value to those around you. And think about it. You would want to work with others who are like this. And so instead of waiting for others to develop these skills, this is part of the way that you can lead, whether you're a leader by title or you're a leader by influence, whatever that looks like. This is the opportunity for all of us, myself included. So I'm going to see if there are some questions we'll filter through. I want to leave you with this though. If you're like, okay, I get all these things, but how do I develop these within myself? I'm going to give you a few options. These obviously aren't exhaustive. I'm an advocate for working with a coach always. And I'm a coach, but I'm not saying it should be me, but I'm an advocate of working with a coach. Sometimes it's a business coach. Sometimes it's a leadership coach. Sometimes it's a public speaking coach. Sometimes it's not a coach. Maybe it's working with a counselor. I'm a big proponent of mental health work and partake in it myself. And so that's one of the ways that we can continue to bring value to those around us and our families is, how do I keep working on me? Because we should not stay static as human beings. So a few resources for you. Free. I want to give you the free one. Okay. The free one first. And I want to see if I can do this in the chat. The free one first are a set of 60 videos, 60 days straight. If you go to this link, I'm going to mess it up. I'm going to drop it in chat. If you go to this link, okay, you can get 60 days, 60 consecutive days of free videos on leadership, negotiations, sales, marketing. There's all kinds of resources. The videos are always less than 10 minutes. Most of them are like 5 minutes. And so if you just put your email address in, then they'll send you these videos to your email. Okay. That's the first thing. Second thing is a book. It's called Business Made Simple. And when you think about Business Made Simple, that's the book. This is really the first 20 pages that I covered today. I don't know. I've got it here in front of me and the total pages are 197. It's 200 pages. It's meant to be like an airplane read. And that will cover some concepts that will give you some ways to think about, wow, now I know what it means to make a personal mission statement. Now I know what it means to actually have a life plan. And so it'll give you a bit of work that you could do in that regard. Okay. Thirdly, there is an online curriculum available called Business Made Simple University. For 1 year, it's $275. 1 year. And they have 11 different courses right now. Marketing Made Simple. One's on the Enneagram, which is interesting. I'm a certified Enneagram coach, but I was already certified before I found this course, and it's a fantastic course. How to write proposals, which has been a transformative course for me in my business. How to write proposals that will floor people if you're in the business of that. So that subscription is $275 a year. I actually think, you cannot tell anybody I said this, within a week or so, I think there might be a buy one, get one coming up. They never offer deals. But if you keep visiting that website, I think around Black Friday, you might see a BOGO come up. So it'd be a good chance to even get that for your team members. Finally, I'm going to throw this out there. Occasionally, on average, probably 4 times a year, I run a workshop called Hero on a Mission. And that work on Hero on a Mission is writing a personal life plan. Many people don't have a clear direction because they're not really clear on what they're on earth for. And so a life plan is one of the best ways that we can actually have a way of fulfilling a purpose, because we get to articulate what that is. We have a chance to really live out what it is that we want to live out, but many people don't know what that is. So here on a mission, if you go to that URL, you'll see an opportunity to join a wait list. I won't badger you with emails. I'll just let you know if you sign up for that. Hey, we're going to open this up in a month, or we're going to open this up in February. I'll probably kick one off in January if the demand is high enough. 5 consecutive weeks over Zoom, we record the calls. And at the end, you have a life planner and a daily planner that you can read every single day to help organize how you spend your time. Those are affiliate links for the 60, for the subscribe for a year, full disclosure. The Amazon, the book is not. And then the Create a Life Plan is just, that's me. That's my workshop. That's my business. What questions did we not get to that came up? Yeah.
Well, thank you first. Thank you so much, Jason, for an incredible presentation. I'm forever grateful to have you join us at Symposium this year. So Michelle wanted to know, what are some techniques for powering down?
Oh man, Michelle, how long you have? Okay, a couple things that I know of that I'm not always great at doing. First is the presencing of feeling your feet on the floor, whether you're standing or you're seated. Feeling your feet on the floor can be one of the best tools that any of us have available for us. I coach a lot of executives who are working on their communication skills. And that's what I'll say to them is, if you can ground yourself, it will ground your audience. They will feel it. The moment we ratchet it up, whether it's whatever, the moment our energy ratchets up, other people feel it. Breathing. So box breathing, you breathe in for a 4 count, you hold for a 2 count, you breathe out for a 6 count. So again, you breathe in for 4, hold for 2, out for 6. There's all kinds of variations of that. I think journaling can be one of the ways I can power down. I don't journal frequently, but I needed to yesterday morning just to get something off of my chest. And for me to write down what I wrote down and then be able to step back and go, oh, I was able to take some perspective and go into the following conversation a bit more grounded and calm. And then I think finally is like powering down. If you're in a conflict with somebody and you're feeling armored up, look at them, see if you can see them beyond whatever you're feeling in the moment. Sometimes that can be one of the most powerful tools for helping us just, okay, I'm working with a human here, and I can approach this with humanity, frankly. Those are the quick answers, Michelle. I hope that's helpful. Zulairam, what else?
Thank you. So the last question we have here, you've been checking the chat out and engaging with all the comments people have been saying. So the last question we have here is, Artie is practicing one of her 10 techniques that she learned today. And she says, what type of feedback would you like to hear from us?
Artie, you're awesome. That's awesome. What kind of feedback? So I'd love to hear what was most useful for you today. And then if you also have suggestions, email them to me. You've got my email address on the screen too. But what was most useful for you personally today? I'd love to hear that. Drop that in the chat, or however you want to, you can email it to me as well. I love that.
And we also have in this section here, I don't know if you all can see it, there's a survey link for you to share your feedback. When you click on it, you're able to select Jason's presentation. So there's going to be a section there for you to like type in feedback. So if you want to take those things that Jason said, let me know how it was, type that in. We're going to share the link with Jason so that he can see those survey results at the end of the symposium.
Wonderful. I thank you all for your time today. It's a pleasure being with you. I hope the rest of the symposium goes really well, and appreciate your time and attention. I know that you're right. We only have finite time. And so I appreciate you giving some of yours to me. I hope it was helpful.
It definitely was. Jason, again, thank you. And I look forward to our next encounter.
Yeah, likewise, Lyra. Thanks for hosting. I appreciate it.
No problem. Have a good day, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.